I have been looking forward to this conversation for the last few weeks because I really enjoy discussions about the business side of golf. We do spend a lot of time talking about, destinations and equipment and tours and controversy and who's going to defect and who's going over here. But from an industry standpoint, we really don't have the conversation nearly as much as it merits, especially over these last few years. So I'm pleased to welcome into the program Jared Doerfler from Perfect Putt. You can find all of his writing for free at perfectputt.substack.com, and you can subscribe to the free newsletter there. Jared, how are you?
I'm doing well, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's funny. You and I are talking early in this week. You're in Iowa. Here I am in Michigan. I wonder if there's any common connection between Michigan and Iowa coming up maybe this Saturday in Indianapolis.
How about that? Yeah, I am not a Hawkeye fan,
Me either.
so it should be an interesting game to watch. Michigan will probably win by 3-4 touchdowns.
I think that's what they're predicting right now. Meanwhile, back into the golf world, how did you decide to turn your attention to the business side of golf? It's a unique angle. There's not really a whole lot of presence in that sector. How'd you get into it?
Yeah, it was purely by accident. So I was finishing up my MBA a couple years ago, had an elective to burn, and decided to take entrepreneurship and innovation. Looked cool, looked fun. And the instructor basically told our whole class the importance of writing online. And Bill, I'm not kidding when I say this. I barely passed freshman English in college, so I didn't think the idea was really applicable to me. But he said that it does two things really that are important we can take to our everyday lives. It holds us accountable, and we can take, or we should be able to learn how to take criticism from people we don't know. And so I was kind of on board with those two things. I thought it would apply to my day job. And I love golf. I've had the fortunate ability to play golf since I was probably about 5 years old. And I love business. So why not marry the two together? And I figured would write for 6 months or so, and was hoping to get to 100 subscribers. And so I'm still having fun doing it. So we're still writing it. It's been a little over 2 years now. And I've learned a ton about the industry. So it's been a lot of fun to research and write.
Well, I would think so. And I'm guessing that as you dove into it more deeply, you found that there's not really a lot of coverage of the industry side of it, unless you're really into the CNBCs of the world. But for golfers, the content just largely isn't there. We're focused too much on personalities and tours and all the things I mentioned in my introduction to you. So when you started digging into it, was there any part of all this that surprised you of how big of an industry this is and how far reaching the tentacles of golf are?
hmm Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways I can go with that. I suppose what surprised me the most off the top is that there's only really two public companies in the golf space, with the Cushnet and Callaway. Drive Shack's public, but they're on the OTC markets. Foresight's traded under their parent company, Vista Outdoor, and then Saks Parente recently IPO'd. Strixon trades under Sumitomo in Japan, but that's such a big conglomerate, it's hard to really kind of find those trends. So I was generally surprised about that. Now, I had known that those two companies had traded publicly before I started writing into this, but I had just assumed that there were more. And there's just not more. Golf entertainment has really taken off in the last 3 to 5 years, and that's been fun to watch that ride. So diving into the business side of that has been really interesting. And I mean, Top Golf, I mean, really the originators of that in 2000 when they were founded, but more and more are popping up like Pop Stroke and Putt Shack and Puttery and other various forms of golf entertainment. So that's really been kind of fun to read and write about.
Well, let's talk into the Top Golf Callaway world. When Callaway acquired Top Golf, I think they don't make the acquisition without believing it's going to really jack up their stock price and be an overall benefit to the company. I go on to perfectputt.substack.com. And the second headline is Callaway stock price down 49%.
Hmm.
Okay, I have my own theories for that, but I'd love to have you kind of share with our audience what you think contributed to that and what they're going to find when they come and read your research.
Well, just off the top, I think Callaway is probably building too many top golf venues too quickly. They're not returning capital to shareholders. That's kind of what it boils down to. Now, when Top Golf was growing for same venue for 7 straight quarters, which was really solid, and so they were able to kind of hang on a little bit. And then last quarter, same venues declined 3%, and so investors didn't like that, and so their stock took a little bit of a dive. Now, Callaway was down 20% last year or so, and the stock was so really it was kind of generally within the market last year, but this year obviously not performing like they think they should. And so what they're doing differently is they're going to slow down that pipeline a little bit for Top Golf venues, and hopefully save about $100 million next year by doing so in cash.
Anytime you see 49% as
Mhm.
either an increase or a decrease, you would have to think that alarm bells are going off in Carlsbad. What have
Mhm.
you seen come out of Callaway? I know when they put out their official releases, everything is going according to plan perfectly and all that. From a reality check standpoint, do you sense panic out there?
I don't think so. I listened to their earnings call and I read through the transcript, and Chip really boiled it down to one thing, and that was corporate sales for Top Golf was down 17% last quarter, and that was off the big bump. Top Golf's still growing. Obviously, they're growing right now because they're adding new venues. When they made the acquisition, they forecasted same venue sales would grow in the low to mid digits on an annual basis. So by 3% decline, I don't think it's something to be super concerned about once. Now, if and they'll probably again they'll probably see a decline in Q4 is seems what they're looking at from a forecasting standpoint. But we'll see how early 24 looks for them from same venue growth and go from there. But if they continue to stay flat or decline in 1 or 2 quarters, 3 quarters from now, then there'll be some serious, I would imagine, alarm bells.
The Topgolf model is intriguing to me. I was talking with a regional representative of a few of the Topgolf facilities, and he was describing to me, and maybe the numbers have changed since I had that conversation, but he said that at the initial buy-in, like the franchise fee, so to speak, was $7 million.
Mm.
And then, in order to receive essentially a turnkey facility ready for customers to come in and start spending money, it was $35 million. So you're $42 million in. And I said to him, man, that is an awful lot of rentals of stalls and an awful lot of computer chip golf balls being hit. And he said, well, you're missing the point then. You're not understanding this. The revenue isn't really in the golf balls. It's not really in the golfers. It's in the food and beverage. It's in the alcohol. It's in all that. And he went on to describe to me what some of the math worked out to be like at the Auburn Hills location, at the Dallas location, and at the Vegas location, and how quickly those venues got back to level. In other words, paid for their entire investment within a couple of years. And my mind was blown. I thought it was a 10-year at best kind of a procedure to get your money back. The Top Golf model, can it continue along the same lines with those big dollars out there, or is there enough competition coming now that it's got to level things down?
Yeah, I don't think that we'll see competition from like a Top Golf 1-to-1. What I think we'll see competition for is people's time with other maybe golf opportunities like a Pop Stroke or a Putt Shack or a Puttery or something along those lines. You bring up an interesting point though on food and beverage spend, which Drive Shack reported on their Puttery locations is around 50%. I've seen Top Golf comps anywhere from 35 to 50%. It makes up a substantial part of their revenue. Can we continue to see these numbers? I certainly hope so because I think it's important and good for the game. The consumer seems strong right now through Black Friday. There's reports that sales were very good. So it really depends on the consumer because the technology is adapted, it's validated. The game, if you will, is adapted and validated. So that's not necessarily it's an issue. It says, are people willing to spend the money and the time to go do Top Golf versus something else?
Well, and that something else appears to be more and more doing the same thing, but in your own home or in your own garage or whatever with the home simulator world. I
Mhm.
know that you did a story with our friends at the indoor golf shop, and we're working with them on a simulator setup for Michigan Golf Live. I'm amazed at the explosive growth in that sector of the game, and it's that $1 billion sector now that if I'm given the choice, in fact, let's take it out of golf for a minute, Jared. Let's go to just sporting events in general. If I'm given the choice right now of going to Indianapolis to watch my Wolverines take on the Hawkeyes in the Big Ten championship game, and I'm going to spend whatever money it is for the tickets and maybe get seats that are in the second level or third level or whatever they are, and I'm going to pay the $70 they're going to charge me to park, and I've got to get the hotel room, and I've got to do all those things. It's a not to mention the ticket price. It's a considerable investment, and you could make the case in that example that I could walk into Best Buy and get myself a very nice 70-inch TV for about the same money as that experience is going to cost me. And I can watch this game with replays and nobody spilling beer on me in the comfort of my own home. I think that's what's happening in the golf sector with the advent of the in-home simulators and the affordability of them becoming a little more reachable, obtainable for everybody. What are you seeing in that world and how it's kind of shaping the way that the recreational and the entertainment side of the game are coming into the home?
Yeah, it's super interesting because you're spot on. I would rather watch a game at home unless I'm in a suite, which I'm not
Yes.
going to be in a suite. So I rather watch the game at home, and that's the beautiful thing about the simulator space is the technology has gotten better, the pricing has gotten better, where a lot of people can afford to put them in their houses or in their garages. I would love to have one in my house. I do not have space. My wife is literally more on board about it than I am. She wants to put a shed in the backyard and put a simulator in there. So I certainly think that's one aspect, but I'll take it a little bit further and something that I'm blind to, and I'll admit that. Now I'm in rural Iowa. Now my wife and I did live in Kansas City for about 5 years, and so we understand the metro market, but I've been removed from the metro market for about 6 years now. And what I didn't understand was I talked to an indoor golf company a few weeks ago, and they have indoor golf locations. What I didn't realize was that the game is relatively unaffordable to join a country club in a large city.
Hmm.
And I'll give you an example. When we were in Kansas City, I won't name the country club, but when we were in Kansas City, there was a course that we were looking at joining, and then we ultimately moved back to Iowa. It was $8,000 initiation fee. Um, that is now about $40,000 today, and this is 6 years later. And so people are not able to afford that. And so what they're doing now is they're actually joining these private indoor golf locations that cost anywhere from $200 to $300 a month. They still have that vibe where they can build relationships with folks. They can get a tee time when they want. It's kind of their own space. And so I think that is actually playing an interesting part right now is that the private country clubs are pricing a lot of people out from joining them. And so now the indoor golf market sees an opportunity there.
Yeah. And with the exception of TrackMan, which has really held its retail price, most of the other launch monitors have come down, or at least they have an option or a version that is a little more budget friendly. And so unless you really want to get dialed in, like you're a NASA scientist down to the third decimal point, you can get technology to fit into your space, or you can go to one near you and make it work, which all goes to my point of saying, I just wonder. Yes, Top Golf is very fun. I've been to a number of them. We've been there for ribbon cuttings and that kind of thing. But again, given the option, I would just as soon make my own sandwiches and have my buddies over to my place if I had that option.
Mhm.
And then not be on a clock and not worry about what else is happening. Now, granted, you're not going to have all the literal bells and whistles and the lights and all that, but unless you're 7, I don't know that that's that big of a deal.
Sure, and I think this is where people get hung up on Top Golf is that generally the hardcore golfer doesn't enjoy Top Golf, and I think
Yeah,
people need to realize that
that's
they
true.
didn't build it for the hardcore golfer, right?
Yeah.
Like I consider myself somebody that loves to get outside and touch grass and play the game and walk 9 holes. I like Top Golf,
Yeah.
but I'm not somebody that's going to go do it once a month. It's a 1 to 2 time a year deal for me. It does not replace golf. What it is, it's entertainment for some friends and their wives and my wife. When we go out and have a good time and have a couple beers and eat some food and just chat about life. It's really going there versus going to maybe our local brewery. That's kind of how I see Top Golf. So yeah, I don't see it as a replacement 1 to 1. It's more of a novelty item for somebody like me.
Let's put it this way. If you're carrying your own bag of clubs into Top Golf, you're probably missing the point.
Yeah, or bringing your golf spikes or a glove. Sure.
Yes, soft spikes not needed at Top Golf. Speaking of entertainment, back in October, late October, you wrote about the TGL, and
Mm.
whatever the TGL stands for, whether it's the Tiger Golf League or whatever they want people, Tomorrow Golf League or whatever they want you to think of it. Uh, you're predicting good things for it. Now, obviously, you wrote that before the domes blew apart and they had to set things back a year. Do you still have optimism for TGL being successful?
I'll be honest, Bill. I'm a little gun shy on this because I haven't hedged really uh, too hardly on something in the last 2 years as I have TGL. Um, Now, from a TGL standpoint, if you look at the nuts and the bolts and you look at the data and you look at the overall business plan, it makes a lot of sense. I see how it works. I see it getting ratings to a similar like an average NBA game. What 1.5, 2 million viewers. ESPN fills a time slot. The playing for real money. I think it's a new concept. It's innovation. It's interesting. Um, I really think there's a case for it. Now, I'm a little gun shy in saying if it's going to go forward in 25. Obviously they put out all those remarks that said that they're going forward with 25, and they've invested a substantial amount of money into this, and they've been able to rally investors, and not only investors but investors for the teams. And so I don't see how it doesn't go forward. But it's unfortunate really what happened because a lot of people they maybe quit their job and went to go work at TGL or Tomorrow Sports, and you really hope that those folks are able to hang on for another year and they're able to get this thing rolling.
I've gone back and forth on what I think will happen, and I guess everybody's got their own opinions. I don't see the appeal in it. And again, I understand that it could very well be more directed at a younger generation that is more esports oriented
Mhm.
and is okay with the concept of what they're putting together. It's not, well, I guess nobody knows until they try it. But I cannot imagine that it's going to draw a return audience. I think it's going to draw the one-time sampler audience where they come in and go, "Oh, let's see what this is all about." And about an hour in, here's my comparison to it, and this might be off base a little bit. I compare it to all these axe throwing and escape rooms that have popped up in strip malls around the country. In your office manager says, "We're going to go to an escape room for a team building exercise." You're like, "Cool," and because you get half a day out of the office. And you all go and you do it for an hour and a half, and you go back and you go, "That was very fun. I'm never doing that again." And then you go to the axe throwing venue, and for 10 minutes, you're throwing an axe at the thing, and you're in a cage or you're whatever, and you're hitting the target. And you get done, and they go, "Would you like to join a league?" And you're like, "Are you asking me if I want to do this at an appointed time every single week and pay for the privilege of throwing an axe at the wood down?" No, I don't. It was a fun one-off. I kind of feel like that might be where TGL is. Am I just the old man howling at the moon here?
No, I don't think you are. I've heard that from several people. Now, I think this is my take on it. I think the people that are against it are louder than the people that are for it. I think they're probably quieter.
Mm.
I did a survey on this, and it had about 230 respondents, with a confidence interval of about 95% with a 6% margin of error. 84% said they're planning on watching and looking forward to it. And that's generally a lot higher than what we see on social media and the people that are against it. Now they do have some. I mean, you're 100% right. Like, you have that initial interest factor, right? A lot of people will tune in to watch. Now they have to be able to hold that going forward. Not only that, is they have to hold Tiger too when Tiger's not playing.
Right.
Because if Tiger plays, look at a 20 to 30% bump on the median.
Yeah.
So that won't be an issue. It's when Tiger's not playing. How do they hold that interest level going forward? How does the technology work?
Or
Um,
is
yeah.
he committed to being an analyst when he's not playing? Is he at least going to be on the broadcast? And
Mhm,
that part of his presence, it is still a needle mover.
mhm. Oh, 100%. The hero will get good ratings this weekend because he's playing in it. So he is the needle mover in golf. There's no question about it.
The numbers we talk about in the tour world, and I've long been wondering when the Saudi investment folks, the PIF fund, I'm wondering when it is they will come after the LPGA.
Mm,
It kind of looks like the LPGA is wondering the same thing, because much like the PGA Tour, they have magically come across a lot more money. Your story that came out just yesterday, the LPGA Tour sees a 76% increase in prize money over 2018.
mhm.
I still think the Saudis will probably come after them, because what better way to sports wash than to say, you tell us that we are misogynistic, well, look what we're doing for the ladies. But in the meantime, the LPGA, which is not nearly as robust financially as the PGA Tour, it looks like they're trying. It looks like they're trying to offer incentives that'll keep these ladies from defecting, although they'll never be able to match the money that may potentially be dangled in front of them. Uh, what do you think led to the 76% increase over that 5-year span? And where do you see the health of that tour?
It's a great question. So a majority of that money came from sponsors, individual events. Um, and I detailed a few of them in the newsletter this week. Whether they're increasing their prize fund from 2.3 million to $3 million next year, or 2.5 to 3, or 2 to 3. That we saw significant purse bumps in a lot of those sponsored events. And not only that, is you see, what Mike Wan's done with the U.S. Women's Open, taking it to $11 million. I mean, that's an incredible purse, and to do that, he had to have a banner sponsor, right? And so instead of the U.S. Women's Open, it's the ProMedica U.S. Women's Open, or whoever their sponsor was last year. I can't remember. So um, that's obviously been a big play for them. Now, the key to the LPGA Tour really is the media deal, right? So I don't know, the terms were not disclosed for the ESPN Plus deal. I can't imagine it's a whole lot of money for 8 events with featured groups and streaming. But if they're able to find a home really where they're shown consistently from Thursday through Friday, that will increase the revenue. The PGA Tour's revenue, like 46% or something like that, comes from a media deal. The LPGA Tour is significantly less. And so if they're able to increase that media deal, then they're much better. As far as the LPGA, getting an investment from elsewhere, from like the Public Investment Fund, certainly a very real possibility. I haven't heard anything out there other than what everyone else has read. But if you just look at the numbers, it looks like one of those things where they could do something, right? And it's not only golf, though. I think we need to keep an eye on tennis too. I mean,
Hmm.
tennis is probably in the same boat as golf right now, from the standpoint of the Public Investment Fund is obviously investing heavily in sport. So those two could certainly could be next. As far as the health going forward, I think the LPGA Tour has probably been as good as it's ever been. They need to get as I mentioned a few minutes ago, they need to really get a media partner that and then also increase their media revenue, that will be able to show more of their events on live TV.
Yeah, there's so much space available in the broadcast spectrum. It still blows my mind that they are shoved into the tape delayed. Here's your
Right.
2 hour block after everybody already knows how your event turned out. And the PGA Tour champions is much the same way. I do think that we are in the next cycle, in the next TV contract cycle. I think we are going to see the PGA Tour's dollars dialed back. They are not able to deliver the difference making personalities like they had. Some of them went over to live, some of them are just not in the mix anymore. And that matters. And at the same time, I would love to pick your brain a little bit about not just the viewer experience, because all you got to do is go on golf Twitter to see how popular the current broadcast model is. Pretty much all tour events. It's about as popular as a trip to the dentist, and the dentist says, we just ran out of Novocaine. It's brutal. The commercial load is like college football. It's unwatchable at times. That's what makes the Masters so fun to watch, because you get to see golf. Do you see any model that could be tweaked enough to appeal to an advertiser, and thus the advertiser is going to spend more with the network, and thus that money is going to flow back to the tour? Is there a model for presenting these broadcasts that is different than what we've been accustomed to, which is see 3 shots hit, take a 2-minute break, come back, see 2 shots hit, watch a feature, then the interview with the sponsor CEO, and then go to another break, and 45 minutes later you've seen 11 shots of golf? Is there a better way out there?
Sky Sports has it figured out over in
Yeah.
the UK, so I don't know. Now, here's the deal: it's a double-edged sword. Okay, the NBC broadcast of the Ryder Cup was not good. It was terrible. Um, CBS generally has done better than NBC, in my opinion, from a broadcast standpoint. Actually, markedly better. Um, Look, how do we make it better? I don't know, but this is the deal: is that the PGA Tour makes a deal, right, a media deal for X amount of dollars, and now their partners need to see a return on their investment. So what's that mean as the consumer? We see more TV commercials and ads. So we want, you want the players to play for more money. We don't want to see a division in the game. At least I don't with living the PGA Tour. I wish this never happened, but so it's like, okay, the PGA Tour has to increase their revenue, and they do that primarily through, not primarily, but a good chunk through their media deal, and so their media partners need to sell ads. I don't know how we get better. I mean, that is so far out of my wheelhouse. I know what I would do. I mean, as a consumer, I would be willing to pay for no
Yep.
commercials or one commercial an hour. I don't know how many people are like me. I've done surveys on this before, and I don't think it's as popular as I thought. I think people still would rather not pay. But if I could have Masters coverage every week, I would pay $10-$20 a tournament for that. I'm being dead serious. And the Masters coverage is obviously impeccable. It's the best golf coverage out there in the States.
Well, we've seen some adjustments being made. You look at NBC Golf Channel, and I don't really know if it's cost cutting or if it's the desire for fresh blood. But when they don't renew Azinger, I mean, I didn't shed a tear. It's not that I have anything personally against Paul. It's just that I'm trying to think of the last time he uttered a comment that I didn't already see with my own 2 eyes on the broadcast.
Mhm.
And so you have this classic model, which is play-by-play voice sets up what's going to happen. Ball is in the air. On-course reporter says that looks like it's going a little bit left. That's got to get down before it gets to the hazard. And then you go to the major championship winner in the booth who says, and as they cut away to the next one, and Spieth has an 11-footer for birdie, you hear Azinger say something like, he really wants to make this one. And I look around, I'm like, well, I never knew that. I mean, that's fantastic insight. I thought perhaps he was just trying to cozy it up there, but apparently he really wants to make it. So I would subscribe to the channel you're describing for a couple of things. One, I wouldn't object to not having a color analyst in the booth. Just tell me who's hitting the shot and what it means. Give me more crowd sounds and just mic up the players and the caddies. That's all I need to hear. I understand that's not for everybody, but in my world, I would prefer to be less annoyed by the broadcast and immersed into it, as opposed to sitting there shaking my head going, I could have done this. Why didn't they hire me for half the money? Because we're not getting, except for some of the new graphics and stats that they're putting up, we're not getting inside the ropes atmosphere to the broadcast.
Yeah, and it really all depends really on how people consume their content. Again, this is why the
Yeah,
Masters has everyone cornered. Obviously, the Masters partner with IBM to build a world-class app and the best app in sports.
by far. Yeah.
And it's used 1 week a year.
Yeah.
Um, if we can just use, the learnings from the Masters and Augusta and IBM and just translate them out, and because somebody may want to consume that on their phone or versus their TV, and the Masters has that all figured out. Again, I go back to what Sky Sports has done, and I made the call after the Ryder Cup. I shouldn't say this, but I want to get a VPN and just start watching Sky Sports. But
Yeah.
what I will say, Bill, is the European Tour coverage is better than PGA Tour coverage. If you ever get up on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning and flip it to Golf Channel, and what they do and their knowledge of the game and their comments is very good. Their analysis is solid. Iona Stephen she does a great job with on-course reporting. It's very organic. It's not forced. It's just better. And then if you pair in Sky there with very limited commercials, I would imagine that it's a home run watching that.
I wonder if it's because the revenue demands of the network are not as great as they are here. NBC and CBS are under the gun to produce revenue from a sport that in this country is a minor league player. They're comparing their numbers to NFL revenue, and those two things are as different as apples and oranges. You're never going to get NFL viewership or NFL revenue out of golf, except with the exception of maybe the Masters, and that's only if Sunday afternoon is two compelling personalities going down the stretch toe to toe. And at the same time, there are some simple tweaks, and I know this is straying a bit from the business of golf world, but in a way it's connected, because audiences have largely decided, I'm not going to watch this live anymore. I'm going to record it. I've got my YouTube TV, my unlimited DVR. I'm going to record it, and I'm never going to watch a single one of your commercials. So until these networks find a way to embed the commercials, and I'm not talking about the playing through where the action becomes the size of a postage stamp next to the commercial. There's got to be a better way, and it's probably a cooperative effort between the broadcaster and the sponsor, who says, okay, I get it. We're not going to be full 4K every pixel on your screen, but where else can you put us? So I watched some of those European broadcasts. They have digital signage that appears out in the fairway while the putting is happening. And it looks like it's there. It's a 3D graphic that has, Minolta or whatever the company is. And it's just in the shot. It looks like somebody walked out and stuck a sign in the fairway, but they didn't. And it's a simple concept to just kind of get creative and not have to stop the action. And college football better get better at it as well, because we're all going to get sick and tired of the 3-minute commercial breaks after every other instant replay injury or score.
This we could go on about this for a while, Bill, because I'm bewildered by college football in a lot of different areas. Now, it's not my area of expertise, but the amount of money that we're buying out college coaches right now, I mean, the amount of money flowing on these media deals is all making a worse product for the consumer. At some point that tips, and that applies to golf too, where people just stop watching.
Yep.
And it devalues the product. So at some point, the product needs to step in with the broadcaster and say, look, we need to make this better. If we make it better, we believe that the value will increase. And I give Mike Wan a lot of credit for that. At the U.S. Open at Brookline, 99.9% sure that was an NBC broadcast, but I know it was. It was bad, and he came out and said that he was going to do everything he could to make it better for the next year. And I would just love some level of accountability from or awareness from the PGA Tour, even the PGA of America with the Ryder Cup and the championship. The PGA of America has gotten a lot right in the last few years, by moving their headquarters to DFW, and then also starting an investment fund and other things. But the coverage has to get better, else the consumer is going to stop consuming the product and watching it. It's pretty simple.
It's too easy to wait until the event is over and then either just watch live from, or go on to an app and go on to Twitter and watch a 2-minute recap of what's happened. The sad part is you get none of the pressure, you get none of the excitement, you get none of the context or the nuance of it. You just get the raw results. And I know that's how baseball is being consumed these days, right? That's how sports that take a long time are being consumed. And at the same time, if you're talking about the business side of golf and in the advertising realm, it can't keep going up forever. At some point, of course, I've said this about professional sports contracts now for the last 2 decades, and I've been wrong. At some point, it has to level out. You can't keep paying a guy $200 million for a 7-year contract. Eventually, it's got to come back down. Who knows when that'll happen? Anyways, the stuff's fascinating, man. And I agree with you. I think we could talk about this kind of stuff for hours. I want to remind everybody, Perfect Putt is the place to go for all of your golf business news from Jared. It's perfectputt.substack.com. And am I right? Everything's free here.
It is free, and I'm hoping that it stays free forever. I really enjoy writing and the research portion to give some valuable content to the readers and industry folks and people that are just really love business. The interesting thing about golf is that there's a huge crossover with golf and business folks, right? A lot of people in the business world that play golf, and so it's a fun read. It's 5 minutes, and yeah, it's free every Monday morning.
So that I don't know how old you are, but if you remember, there was a skit on Saturday Night Live probably 25 years ago. It was called The Bank of Change. And it was a spoof commercial. And the claim to fame of this bank was, we make change. You come in with $1, we'll give you 4 quarters. You need change for a quarter, we'll give you 2 dimes and 5 pennies. And then somebody comes in and says, well, how do you make money? I say volume. And as I think about Perfect Putt, I'm wondering how you can invest the time in it and not charge anything. I mean, it's very cool that you do it that way, but in the business side of golf, what's the Perfect Putt model for all this working?
No, I have not seen that skit, but I wrote it down. I need to go
look it up. It's hilarious.
Yeah. It's the model is it's ad revenue, right? And it's not a ton of money. What I've learned is that ad revenue, you have to be massive for it to really kind of change your life, if you will, or live off of it. So that's the model. Maybe at some point I do something, a spinoff where, that's maybe an annual subscription or a monthly subscription that's not Perfect Putt, but maybe there's more in-depth research on industry, the golf industry. So maybe that's something in the future, but I really want to keep it free, because once you gatekeep it, it's hard to grow. And it's hard, Bill, because you have to find the perfect line. You can go on any blog these days and you'll accidentally click an ad because all the pop-ups, the videos, the spinners, everything. And it's not really something that we want to, as a consumer. I like it. When I go to a recipe, if I'm doing something on my Traeger, it takes me 10 minutes to find the recipe because I have to go through all the ads.
Right.
If you ever look at something. So it's a fine line there, right? I understand why they're doing it. They need to make money. But I want it to be a good experience for the reader. It's something that, we talked about with golf. It's like, I don't want them to, with watching golf, I don't want the reader to have to struggle to find the piece and the content. So it's just a small top of the page ad to promote a brand that aligns with the newsletter. That's really the monetization point right now.
It's very cool. And hopefully you'll You'll pick up a few more subscribers from this conversation. Thanks so much for the insight, and we will look forward to each week getting the new newsletter in our inbox.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. Go Blue.
Go Blue. Amen.